Noosa Enduro 60k mountain bike race, which was actually 70 kilometres and was advertised as a mountain bike race. And I thought I'd give it a crack on the gravel bike. So there were a few of us on gravel bikes, but not many. And as you'll see as we go through this race, I start to wonder if I had made the right choice. So we sat behind that cop car for the first 2k, and this is kind of where it all kicks off. So there was a lot of sealed roads, obviously, which is where the gravel bike was perfect. And this is certainly one of the smoother dirt sections, Fire Road. So this guy in front of me is my mate Mike. He's also on a gravel bike. He's been training really well. And I didn't actually really think I'd be able to stay with him. So even those rocky sections...
What's wrong, mate?
Mike dropped his water bottle, but even those really rocky sections without suspension and narrow tyres, it just shakes your body.
You all right, mate? Oh.
So we're into some single track, and I don't mind this on the gravel bike. There's a few little logs you got to sort of jump over and tree roots. That's not too bad. See one of those tree roots there. And as far as manoeuvrability and traction and everything, I didn't really find this that big a problem. And what I did find a problem though is what you're about to see ahead of me, which is the traffic. So there was wave starts in this. I think we were the third or fourth wave start. There was 5 to 10 minutes between wave starts. So these were the people at the back of the wave start before us. So this dude on the yellow gravel bike, he ended up coming second or third or fourth or something. He wasn't brilliantly technical, but he certainly was fit and strong. Already there's people on the side of the trail there. I don't know why. We're only probably 4 or 5k into the event at this point. Maybe they were letting us through, which is nice of them. So the traffic just got worse and worse.
Is that where you're from, mate? Yeah.
Nowhere to overtake, and we just had to sit there and be patient.
Yeah, mate, we're not going to get through, Mike. You're just going to have to sit here.
So my mate Mike's behind me.
I think the French ones in our group, well, they're caught too.
So Mike was starting to get a little upset about the traffic.
Are you the one who took off early, mate? The one in front of me on the yellow canyon? Yeah. I thought it was on an e-bike. Well, these bikes are fine, Mike, for this.
I might eat my words there. What I was saying is my gravel bike seems fine for all this.
Oh, Mike, don't worry about it. Don't get the shits, mate. It is what it is. Are we going the right way?
Again, giving Mike a bit of a pep talk.
Well, it's very social.
He was starting to get frustrated. He's a real racer, and here we are.
Happening again.
In this traffic.
You want to let us through?
So someone just stopped and didn't get off trail. So that's why I said at that point, hey, can you just let us through? People racing behind you. There's etiquette, of course. And here's my mate again on that yellow gravel bike. Didn't like anything too technical. And it opens up and we actually get back on a bit of sealed road in a second.
Back on the road here, Mike.
So obviously where gravel bikes shone was right here.
Righto, come on.
Good gearing, no suspension, so no waste of energy. And on this section of road also, just the dirt roads. Fantastic in this area, could really utilise the speed of the bike. And there was a lot of this, I'd say over a half of it was sealed roads and dirt roads. And here's Mike again. We're still together at this point. I can tell he's just dawdling there. Here comes our mate on that yellow gravel bike. Second time he's just taken off like that. And this guy ahead of Mike right now is on a dual suspension Specialized Epic. So cross-country lightweight bike. He's also super strong. And in the distance disappearing there was Mike. And that was the last I saw of him. So Mike was third in this event. I ended up coming seventh. And from this point on, I felt like I was pretty much by myself. So all these bikes I'm overtaking are the waves that started before my wave. In my wave, I reckon there was probably close to 100 riders. And as always, the camera doesn't show how steep this hill is, but trust me, it's steep. Fantastic course. How they link it all together is pretty cool. So at this point, it's all been pretty good. These smooth gravel roads and sealed roads and single track. Here's another section of single track. So again, this single track was fine on the gravel bike. It was pretty hard packed. And again, the logs and tree roots you got to get over, I find fairly easy to do.
Thank you.
So when we got on this section of sealed road, there was a mountain bike right on my wheel, which made me start thinking, God, if I'd had my mountain bike, I could have just sat on the gravel bike's wheel during these really fast sections. I'll never know, of course, because I use this bike. So I'm at an obvious advantage on these sections. I reckon there was probably 200 plus riders who went before our wave, so who knows what waves they are. But that's, again, why I keep catching all these people. They're not in my race. And this was the first bit of track that started getting a bit rough. Now you can see where obviously cars have been driving on this section. It wasn't too bad. But when it sweeps into a corner, I just didn't have the confidence in the grip of the tyres.
Drop the bottle, mate. Someone dropped the bottle, unless you just hit it.
So I kept sort of catching these bikes, and then when it got rough, they'd catch me again, and it was a lot of to and froing. And again, just the constant jarring. My hands were really hurting, and my triceps, the back of my upper arm, really got fatigued. I haven't really felt that before. Being Queensland, we've had a lot of rain. I had to actually change the course because of that. So a lot of muddy sections. So this guy ahead of me is the same dude who was at the start with us. He's the only one in our little group that was still there, but even then he disappeared into the distance.
You all right, mate?
There was quite a bit of carnage, a lot of people down, a lot of people on the side of the trail. Some were just resting, but some
Oh shit, is this
were
rideable?
cramping. So I managed to ride this section. I was pretty happy with myself and the bike. Like, these bikes are actually very capable, as I've said before. But it's not about what can they do, it's more about how much does it knock you around, how much does it fatigue the body. And that was really the big difference. But then on the flip side, on the sealed sections, how much quicker are they than these mountain bikes? So,
Mate, found the limit of a gravel bike.
now you can hear my brakes there. So every time I went through mud, got caught up in the brake caliper rubbing against the rotor. I mean, everyone's did, but I felt like mine were louder than everyone else's bikes because they are just road brakes, Shimano 105 brakes. So wrong gear coming out of there. Should have selected the easy gear before I went down and crossed that creek. Just didn't have the gearing to climb out of it.
Bloody gravel bikes. Sound like a good idea at the time.
And you can hear me starting to whine a bit about my bike choice at this point. But what would happen, these people I'd overtaken would get me through these technical sections, and I just have to go around them again. But this section, if the whole race was like this, perfect bike. But it was advertised as a mountain bike race. So I'm the one who didn't read the brochure. So there was close to 1,000 metres of climbing in this 70k. So plenty of uphill, plenty of mud, plenty of creeks. And now I'm watching the footage, really nice scenery. My eyes were pretty glued to the trail. It was really important I tried to find a good line, which I'm not convinced I was doing here. So for that reason, I didn't really get to admire the beauty of the area. So those motocross bikes with the cops keeping an eye on everything. You can hear my bike rattling. Something was loose. I think it might have been in one of my STI levers actually. A bit of a rattle. But I guess they're not really designed for this. So that guy coming back the other way, they were the first wave. There was some sections which was two-way.
Whoa. Thanks, mate.
So a bit of a close call there. That section, only really one area to get through. That guy was coming back. And I was concerned about these big puddles because you don't know what's in there. And on this bike, you hit a rock or something, you're in all sorts of trouble. Where on a mountain bike, you don't seem to care as much. You just go for it. I didn't get a puncture, which is awesome. So we come into Pomona here, which is kind of the turnaround point. And we go around the Pomona Mountain.
Thank you.
So this car Obviously didn't realise there was a bike race on. They got bike racks, you would think they'd give a shit, but obviously not. So at this point you could stop and refuel. Apparently Amanda told me they had cake and all sorts of yummy stuff here, but I had plenty of nutrition with my Infinite, so I just kept going. This young lady, I believe, was one of the quickest girls on the day. She's on a mountain bike. I managed to get past her. I think she started in one of the earlier waves. Well, I know she did. She's quite a bit younger than I am. So we are going around the Pomona Mountain here, so it is quite steep. We get onto a gravel road shortly, which is very, very steep. But these sections here, I feel I'm much slower than I would have been on a mountain bike. This stuff is great. I love this part. And I guess gravel bikes, that's what they're designed for. Basically roads with gravel on them. But then the climbing begins. So there was a lot of steep climbing through this section as we go around the mountain. I'm in granny gear here. I'm really glad I put that 46 cassette on.
Oh, thank God that's not our sign. Yeah, okay.
So this 70k to go was for the race that was on the next day, the Australian Championship gravel race. So it wasn't for us, because we've only got 70 total. We're halfway through it. So this is silly steep. I don't know why cameras don't show how steep a road is. This guide had enough. I rode every section, unless it was a technical part that I near fell off, but otherwise every hill I managed to ride, which I was pretty pleased with. Remembering I've been crook for 3 weeks leading into this and hadn't done any training off the back of that ultra trail run I did. So I was pretty pleased considering that. And I stayed pretty strong. Physically, energy-wise, I felt pretty good. Just the jarring, that's the bit that got me. This poor bastard's cramping. Saw a lot of that through the event. Look at him, he's crippled. I shouldn't laugh, we've all been there.
You're all right, mate. Cramping. Sit down, stretch it out.
And now we come down the other side of this Pomona Mountain, which was all sealed road. So this was the quickest part of the event. Probably sitting on, I don't know, 40, 50 or something down here. I was just coasting. So this guy, I had a good battle with him for the first 2/3 of this race. He was really good on the hills. So every hill he'd overtake me, and on the flatter sections I tend to pull him back. So looked like he was a slightly lighter guy, so good at climbing. He was on a hardtail mountain bike, which I think was probably the best bike selection for this event. Front suspension only, slightly bigger tyres. I feel that was the sweet spot. You can see these people now are still going out to Pomona, to the halfway point, because now I'm coming back on this two-way trail. So on the side we have to stay on, remembering we have to stay on the left-hand side in Australia. It was really rough, but you've got to stay there because people on the other side, that's their right to be on that side. Would have loved to have been over there during that section.
Whoa! Jesus, that near went bad. I hit a creek during the race and near went over the handlebars. I don't know how I didn't. The front wheel dug in, and look at that. Can you see that? It's dented. So I've got a crazy buckle. I need to see if I can fix that, but that's pretty bad. So amazingly, that creek, is where I almost went over the handlebars, scared the shit out of me. And I destroyed my rim, which I've since fixed. Well, sort of fixed. But I didn't puncture. And I can't believe I didn't puncture. Because I hit the rock or whatever it was in that creek so hard. Which way do I go, mate? That's the 60? So the signage was actually pretty good. I didn't see any there, I'm sure it was there. So by this point, getting close to the last quarter of the race, I'm actually really hoping there's no more rough stuff because my body's just so sore. As I said, my triceps, my hands, my wrists. And there were sections where I was pulling the brakes on as hard as I could, yet still speeding up going down some of these rocky sections. It's quite frightening. So again, was I on the correct bike? I'm going to say no. So this was the power line trail. You can see the power lines up there. And this was probably the hardest part of the whole event. Again, this would be, I'm going to say, close to 20% incline. But these downhill sections, these rocks are huge. Not knowing what's in these puddles. And look at the mountain bikes go. And then trying to climb out this side on that, all those rocks and pebbles and whatever's down there. But to my credit, I did. I climbed out. And the mountain bikers just looked like they were doing it easier. Don't have to pick your line as delicately as I was on this bike. But I did find the limits of a gravel bike, I believe. And the truth is you can do it.
How you going?
Oh, it's a bit rough on this, mate.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
Good.
Just depends how much you want to knock your body around, I guess. Everyone's looking for that one bike for everything. I just don't think it exists. We need multiple bikes. So there's a little bridge on the left-hand side there. See that little timber bridge? I didn't really see that until about now. And I wish I'd just gone through that creek, but I decided to come back and walk across that bridge. Just a bit annoyed at myself there. I feel you could have ridden that creek. Or if I'd seen the bridge earlier, at least attempted to ride across there. This section looked pretty new, newly mowed. And I'm pretty tired. So this was like clay. This really just pulled your bike into the ground. Really tacky, quite an effort to ride through. Not slippery, but like glue, like it wants to hold you to the ground. Was just praying for sealed roads. This stuff was pretty good, fairly quick. And sometimes you feel like you're the only person in a race. Can't see anybody. Everyone experiences that. So quite a relief to be on the sealed road. Give the arms and hands a bit of a rest.
Thank you. Okay.
Now this is this bit of single track we did coming the other way also. So we rode this section twice. This is one of these out and back sections all the bikes had gone through. This was pretty early on from the start. And I do like the single track on the gravel bike. It's good fun, particularly with the narrow handlebars. No risk of hitting trees or anything with your bars. This is a nice flowy track. I'd like to come back to this. I'll never probably find it again, but it was really nice, this section. So plenty of photographers along the way. They just appear. Probably 2/3 through this bit of single track and pulled up behind a bit of traffic again. I didn't mind the rest actually. Oh, I thought the GoPro went dead. Look at this. So that, I'm not sure if I chose the right bike for that. So I nearly went over the handlebars, look at that. Buckled my front wheels, just hitting the frame. Scary. Anyway, check out the state of the bike. As I said, right on the limit of what I reckon a gravel bike can do. Alright, the GoPro battery went flat with about 15k to go, so I didn't get the last section. Probably have my time again, definitely use the mountain bike. That was right on the limit. Oops, that was right on the limit of what a gravel bike can do. I couldn't pull the brakes on the end.